This video covers enhanced domains, what they are, and what they mean for you. I'm going to speak briefly about our future plans for enhanced domains. As always, we ask that you don't make any purchase decisions based upon those statements. So what are enhanced domains? You may have heard about the Salesforce feature called My Domain. With My Domain, you choose a subdomain or a name to use in the URLs that Salesforce serves for your org. This allows you to include your brand in those URLs. For example, you can log into Salesforce with mycompany.my.salesforce.com. Enhanced domains are the next version of the My Domain feature. When you deploy enhanced domains, your My Domain name is used in more URLs, and of note, it's used in your Visualforce pages and in the Salesforce hosted URLs for your sites, whether they're Experience Cloud sites or Salesforce sites. Without enhanced domains, sites have their own subdomain that you choose. That subdomain may or may not be the same as your My Domain. When you deploy enhanced domains, your My Domain name becomes the subdomain, and the suffix of those URLs change. Now, why are we doing this? The very short answer is that enhanced domains meet the latest browser requirements. But let's dig in a little bit more. You may have noticed a trend in the industry against third-party cookies. A cookie is a small block of data that tracks information on a computer or a web browser. For example, when you log into a site, your account information is stored in a cookie in your browser so that when you visit that site again, you don't have to log in again. It's the same thing with shopping carts, chat functions, and a whole bunch of other functionality that we all expect today. Well, a third-party cookie is when that cookie, that block of information, is accessed by a different domain. A simple example is when you search for flights for a trip on one site, and then you visit a different website and see an advertisement related to that same destination. Because the domain that's referencing the cookie with that destination information is different than the domain that originally created it, it's considered a third-party cookie. Today, users are demanding more control over how data about them is collected and used. There are also several regulations in play about this, and browsers are updating their standards and policies accordingly. Most browsers today block these third-party cookies by default, and then they allow users to disable that blockage if they want to. Many browsers plan to permanently block those cookies in the future. This matters because Salesforce delivers content from multiple domains. So think about a Lightning page that ends in lightning.force.com with an embedded image stored in Salesforce. Now, without enhanced domains, the URL for that image ends in documentforce.com. Even though the image is stored in the same org, the browser sees that those are two different domains and considers accessing the image from the Lightning page a third-party cookie. And in this case, the image fails to load on that Lightning page when third-party cookies are blocked. That is why Salesforce is moving to enhanced domains and requiring them for all customers. Now, additionally, enhanced domains also offer some improved security standards through certificates, but I'm not going to go into great detail about that here because really the main reason for the move to enhanced domains and the reason we're requiring it is so that your users can continue to use Salesforce as browsers progress in their blockage of third-party cookies. Now let's talk about how you deploy enhanced domains. The steps within Salesforce are very simple. There's a checkbox on the My Domain page in Setup that says Use Enhanced Domains. You're going to edit your My Domain details and check that box. If you want, at the same time, you can change your My Domain name. When you save that change, Salesforce provisions all the corresponding domains for you. In other words, we get them ready. When that provisioning process is complete, you get an email, at which point you can log back in and deploy the new My Domain from that same My Domain page and setup. As soon as you deploy the change, the new domains are available for use. Now that's fairly simple mechanically. The part we want to make sure we make everyone aware about is that when you click deploy, that changes many of the URLs for your org, including the suffixes. And that can cause some issues. That's why we highly recommend that you test enhanced domains in a sandbox before you deploy them in production. The goal is to find all the places that you might need to make an update. And when is all this happening? New orgs already get enhanced domains by default, and we deployed this feature in most sandboxes in winter 23. Enhanced domains are automatically deployed in all orgs with Spring 23, and they're enforced in Winter 24. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Enhanced domains have actually been around for a while, but Summer 22 is when they were first available to all customers without any prerequisites. Before the Summer 22 release, you had to enable Salesforce Edge Network, or it was available without Edge, but only in certain orgs. With Summer 22, it's available everywhere, and new orgs get this feature by default. In Winter 23, to help you test, we enabled and deployed enhanced domains in sandboxes and non-production orgs. There were a couple of exceptions based on org configuration, but it was deployed by default in most non-production orgs, and you could disable it if you wanted to. So you may have seen enhanced domains enabled in one of your sandboxes. In Spring 23, Salesforce automatically deploys it in all remaining orgs. Now you can opt out of that deployment if you need more time to test. Also in this release, whether you deploy enhanced domains yourself or Salesforce deploys it for you, you can disable the feature if you encounter an issue and need some time to find a solution. In Summer 23, we deploy enhanced domains in any orgs that still don't have enhanced domains. So for example, if you opted out of the automatic deployment in Spring 23 and didn't deploy enhanced domains on your own, or if you disabled enhanced domains after it was auto-deployed, now we're going to deploy it for you in Summer 23. Now you can't opt out of that automatic deployment, but you can, again, disable the feature if you encounter issues and you need some more time to resolve them. And then finally, in Winter 24, enhanced domains are enforced. That means that, again, anyone without enhanced domains, it's going to be deployed for you again, and this time you can't disable it. So at this point, everyone will be using enhanced domains. Now, one of the big questions we get is, what happens if someone visits my old domains? The good news is that we redirect them by default. What that means is that we send a redirect message in the header of the response that we send to any call to that URL. As long as the other party can process that redirect message, that means that there won't be any interruptions for your users. And yes, that means you need to test all your integrations to make sure that they can process those redirection instructions. However, there is a twist. There are some domains that we refer to as non-enhanced domains. This includes Experience Cloud sites and Salesforce sites that end in force.com, Visual Force pages, and content domains, for just a few. Plus the old URL formats that include your Salesforce instance like NA128. The redirections for those URLs stop in Winter 25. So you have a year after enforcement to make sure that you clean up any references and to get your users using the new URLs. There's a lot more information in Salesforce Help about that, including exactly which URLs are affected and how to test them. After you deploy enhanced domains, you can use our redirections log tool to detect which URLs are being called and visited. That can help you track down where they're being referenced so you can update them as needed. Now, I mentioned that my domain host names change when you deploy enhanced domains. This slide shows a comparison between the current domain suffixes and the same suffixes after you deploy enhanced domains in a production org and in a sandbox org. This isn't a full list, but it covers many of the ones with the largest impact. Now, before I cover some key points here, you'll hear me say, if you're not changing your my domain name or suffix, a couple times in this presentation. So let's quickly review what that means. Branding is the most common reason you might change your my domain name. You choose your my domain name and it's used in the URLs that Salesforce hosts for your org. It's the subdomain used before all of these domain suffixes you're seeing here. If you use your force.com site URL today as a public-facing website and your my domain doesn't match your external brand, so if I have myinternalcompany.my.salesforce.com, you might want to change your my domain name to match that external brand. Or if your brand changed, you might want to change your my domain name. Those are the two big reasons people change it. The my domain suffix is the last part of the domain, like salesforce.com. The vast majority of customers won't change their suffix, but if you are a customer that uses cloudforce.com or database.com URLs, then you have to move to the standard.my.salesforce.com login URL and all the corresponding URLs as part of deploying enhanced domains. Those are the only customers for which the statement, if you're changing your my domain suffix, applies. Now, let's look at this list of domain suffixes. One thing that I want to call out. When you deploy enhanced domains in production, if you aren't also changing your my domain name or suffix, see, I just said it right there, your login URL for your org and your lightning.force.com URL doesn't change. That's great news because it means that the URL that your users like sales reps and support agents log in with doesn't change. Also, a lot of your interfaces are probably using this URL. However, notice that almost every other domain suffix changes. Visual Force pages, Document Force, which serves files that are stored in Salesforce, the SCRT domain, which is used for omnichannel engagement like chat and Service Cloud Voice, and perhaps most importantly, your public-facing Experience Cloud sites and Salesforce sites move from a .force.com domain to a completely different suffix. So for sites, in addition to the subdomain changing to your my domain, your suffix changes as well. This can have a big impact because that URL may be used in your marketing materials and you may link to it from other areas outside of Salesforce. So I want to highlight that as one change that you definitely want to plan for. The other key item to point out is the column on the right. When you deploy enhanced domains in a sandbox, more domains change. Most notably, your sandbox login URL changes because sandbox are partitioned, meaning that they include the word sandbox in the domain when you deploy enhanced domains. That means you may have more to test when you deploy enhanced domains in your sandbox, but you'll also catch all the places that you may need to update it in production. These are the changes, and there's a lot more information in Salesforce Help. The goal here is to give you an overview of what domains change with this feature. Well, and now that you know all these URLs change, what does that mean? What might need a little bit more attention when you deploy this feature? Once again, we're going to look at two big buckets. On the left, we'll talk about updating production when you're not changing your my domain name or suffix. On the right, we'll talk about the additional areas of impact in sandboxes and in production orgs when you're updating your my domain name or suffix. Let's start with production when you don't need to change those two items. Things you need to change here include anything with hostname-based restrictions. Allow lists, firewalls, proxy servers, all those sorts of things. With enhanced domains, you need to add those new suffixes to the configuration. If you don't know if you have any of those restrictions, talk to your information security, sometimes called InfoSec, or networking people. They'll know. Now you also, I mentioned earlier, Experience Cloud sites and Salesforce sites. The force.com URL that Salesforce serves for these sites changes. There are multiple changes that you need to make because of that. The number of changes you need to make is larger if you use the force.com URL externally. So if that's the URL that your customers go to visit your site. If you serve your site with a custom domain that you own, like mycompany.com, then the number of changes is smaller, but there are still some changes you need to make. They're all documented in Salesforce Help. If you use authentication for sites, including single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, and name credentials, then you need to update those with your new site login URL. And any third-party integrations and connected apps that connect to your sites have to be updated. Now, when you fall in the right-hand column and you're changing your my domain name or suffix in production, or you're doing this in your sandbox, you also need to update those same third-party connections for the login URL that's going to change. We're going to talk about that in a second. You also need to update references to content stored in Salesforce because that URL changes. Earlier we talked about an image stored in Salesforce and served on a Lightning page. Think about other places that they could be served, for example, badges in my Trailhead, and you need to update any external references to those images, such as an email or a website that serves an image or file that's stored in Salesforce. If you have any hard-coded links to your Visual Force pages, those also need to be updated. And briefly, if you have installed any packages from AppExchange, which I think almost every customer has, make sure that those are working as well. It's pretty rare for a package to use a full hard-coded URL that needs to be updated. We've actually recommended that developers use relative links instead for a very long time. We also recently added an Apex call to get the URLs dynamically and encourage our partners to use that if needed. That said, if you have installed packages, make sure that you include that functionality in your testing. If there is a package that needs to deliver a change, the package developers may release a new version or patch to deliver those changes, and you want to make sure that you test that new version. So that's in production, again, without a my domain change or suffix change. Now, when you test in a sandbox, or if you're one of the customers who will change your my domain name or suffix, there are some additional areas of impact. The big thing is that your my domain login URL changes. The items we talked about for production still apply here, but now logging into your Salesforce org, including authentication, third-party integrations, and connected apps, changes. I'll call it specifically that we have some instructions and help to make sure that you don't lock yourself out of your org when that URL changes. There are some authentication methods, especially when you use a physical key to authenticate, that are tied to the URL. So when that URL changes, those authentication methods no longer work. You want to make sure that you have a backup authentication method that works when the URL changes so that you can continue to log into your org and make updates. There's a help topic that explains when this applies and what you need to do before you deploy enhanced domains. Then after you deploy the feature, there are updates you may need to make to your authentication methods, like if you use Salesforce as an identity provider. Likewise, if you allow your users to log in with an identity provider such as Google or Facebook from your My Domain login page, those need to be updated as well because now you're using a new login URL. If you're using messaging for in-app and web, your existing deployments need to be redeployed after you deploy enhanced domains. Now, if you use enablement sites, which were previously known as My Trailhead, those are often tied to a login URL, so you need to contact our support to get that updated. Also, if you use images stored in Salesforce for your badges, those need to be updated too. Now lastly, if you're a Service Cloud Voice customer, you may have already gotten a notice about this, but the initial configuration with your telephony provider uses My Domain login URLs that change with enhanced domains if you deploy it in a sandbox or change your My Domain name or suffix. In Winter 23, there isn't a way to update that configuration cleanly. We have a fix for this planned in Spring 23. Specifically, if you're using Amazon Connect as your telephony provider, Salesforce updates your configuration as part of deploying enhanced domains. If you're using another telephony provider, one other than Amazon Connect, you're going to need to work with them to update the URLs in their configuration to get voice working after you deploy enhanced domains. So if you're a Service Cloud Voice customer, you may want to opt out of the automatic deployment in Spring 23 and deploy it yourself when you're ready to test with the fix that's coming in that release. Now this is a highlight of the major areas of impact. There is a lot more information in the help page mentioned at the bottom of this slide. And yes, I know you can't click on it while you're watching this video. The link is available with a summary of this video online, or you can search that page title. Finally, let's talk about where you can get some more information. Most of the links I'm about to cover are available in the description of this video. There is a lot of information about enhanced domains in Salesforce Help. This is a complex change, and as you've hopefully seen, the impact depends upon the Salesforce products and features that you use. We're capturing all the things you may need to update on the page I just mentioned, which is the third link on this slide, but it's likely that all those steps don't apply to you. A lot of customers wanted project-level guidance. That's in the plan for a My Domain change section. I recommend that you start with the checklist templates in that section and remove the items that don't apply to you. For example, grab the checklist, and if you don't have Experience Cloud sites or Salesforce sites, you remove all those related steps. There's also a quick version of the checklist to get you started. I also mentioned earlier that there's a lot of information on redirections. That link is also here and in the video description. You'll also see a link here to the steps to how to opt out for the automatic deployment of enhanced domains in Spring 23. The short of it is that you must log into each org that you want to opt out before that org gets Spring 23 and deselect the option to automatically deploy enhanced domains with that release. If you need a little more time to deploy enhanced domains, that option remains available to you. I'll also remind you that the feature is automatically deployed in Summer 23 with no option to opt out before that deployment, so please plan accordingly. We highly encourage everyone to test this feature and deploy it on your own. We also have an extensive frequently asked questions document, which I recommend as your first stop when you have a question. This link is also in the video description. There are a couple of recordings available for previous webinars. These links aren't in the video summary, but you can access them easily from the Trailblazer community group that is linked in the video description. The one caveat that I'll make about these videos is that the enforcement timeline referenced in these two presentations is different because they were made before the timeline changed. So make sure that you reference the latest timeline. We have a Trailblazer community group that is very active. We encourage everyone to join because not only can you ask questions there, but we also often share updates via that channel. Then, after looking at the documentation, the frequently asked questions, and posting on the Trailblazer community group, if you still need assistance, we also have office hours. We're here to help. Like the webinars, you can find the link to these office hours on the Trailblazer community group. Thank you so much for listening to the summary of enhanced domains and what they mean for you. I hope that the information helps you adopt this high impact feature.